Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Paul Mackay from Analogue Wonderland, and today I'll be talking to you all about one of the latest Wonderbox films, the wonder that is Revolog Streak, and why you would want a film that looks as though it's damaged. Quick one before we get started. If you like film photography and want to see more videos like this one, film reviews, tips and tricks, that kind of thing, then please do make sure you're subscribed to our channel and notifications are turned on. Thank you so much. This is not the first Revolog film in the Wonderbox, but I'll give a quick summary of the brand's aims and what they do before we get into the specifics of Streak. So Revolog are a creative film brand. That means that they take a base colour emulsion like Kodak Gold or C200 or Colour Plus, and they apply their own unique, sometimes digital, sometimes analog effect on top of the emulsion in the perfect dark. They re-roll it, they sticker it over so you know that it's a Revolog film and not just a gold. And then when you shoot your photos, your images will interact with the special effect that's been preloaded, so to speak, and you'll get a unique set of lovely images. Now, this one in particular, Revolog Streak, is probably one of the more controversial ones because it is inspired by the look you can get from very old films that haven't been stored well or haven't been looked after, that can look a bit scratched and dirty. So of course traditional photographers would say, scratch your emulsion. But of course it's not quite like that, and Revolog have spent a lot of time getting the look exactly right, so it doesn't ruin an image, but it adds to it. The point being that you can shoot this with certain look in mind, and what you will get is you will get that sort of vintagey aesthetic of sort of more 40s, 50s colour film than the nice vibrant colours of the 60s, 70s onwards, simply because you do have these slight imperfections and lines through your film. Now, when we showed the Revolog Nebula film a few months ago in the Wonderbox, we talked about that one that had galaxies superimposed. And recently when we did the photo competition, what was quite obvious was that the photos that really worked well was where people had thought through what subject matters could interact quite well with galaxies. So people had musical instruments where the galaxies then looked as though it's the music coming out, or family situations where it added an otherworldly sort of cosmic perspective on a very intimate relationship, all of these kind of things. So when you think creative film and random effect and that they're randomly allocated across the frame, that doesn't mean that you can't still bend the odds in your favour by choosing subjects that will work particularly well. So for example, thinking about Streak, when I open this in my Wonderbox, I will probably be thinking, actually it'd be good to do sort of a vintage shot. Now whether that's with a model in vintage clothing or whether that's in parts of London or Oxford. Actually Oxford would be brilliant for this, in vintage clothing stores and in certain areas where I know I'm likely to see quite vintage looking folk, then that's one way where the effect will then interact quite nicely to provide an overall aesthetic that is very much of an era. If I just loaded it up and used it in a point and shoot, irrespective of subject for the entire role, I might get good images, but I'd definitely be relying on Lady Luck a lot more than if I had that in mind. So that's one tip for creative films in general, and also it's quite nice to challenge yourself and say, well, how can I try and add serendipity to planning to create something that's really special? As with many films in this way, because the effect is applied uniformly throughout, when you then shoot with it, if you are overexposing or if you're aiming at things that are very light or bright areas in your photo, that's likely to overwhelm the effect. Shadows are much more likely to show the effect come through. So again, having a think through, it's ISO 200, which tells me this is probably C200 Gold or Colour Plus underneath. ISO 200, 36 exposures. It is likely to work particularly well then, either slightly underexposed or in areas where you're going to have enough shadows to show that come through. So that is one thought to make sure that if you want that effect strongly, go slightly darker. If you want it to be a much more subtle effect, again, you either overexpose slightly by changing the light meter or by just aiming at brighter things in particular. High contrast images will then have some areas of no effect or low effect, some areas of really strong effect. So please do have fun, experiment. If you were in the Wonderbox subscription at the time of Nebula, hopefully you've had a chance to play with a Revolog film before and understood what works really well for your photography. Maybe things that didn't work well first time, you can now try and correct or try something different, or things you really enjoyed, really worked well, but you're now looking to do it with a different effect that's perfect. But I'm hoping to see lots and lots of vintagey shots in the next Wonderbox competition, or your own interpretation of what the streaks could look like. And that's it for this week. So I hope you have a lot of fun with another creative colour film. I hope it inspires you without challenging you too much with the randomness, and I will see you again next week.